guess we have to have rules in place to be able to do that.
Well, I don't feel that a kid parking on a street has anything to do with a safety issue, so it would have to be looked at differently if we indeed were to choose that route. I'm not saying that's the right route to go. Again, it's a city street. I live next to a park, and
Yeah.
people can park in front of my house and walk to the park to take their kids to play soccer. Gosh, I could get 100% of my neighbors to sign that, and get my street taken care of too. So it is a very, very, very slippery slope.
It's kicking the can down the road, so to speak. Yeah. So, Alderman
I
Pender.
just want to add real quick, the problem is, it's always going to be the fairness and equity. If you can't park in front of my house and I live by the entity that's drawing it, then you're going somewhere else. Why am I able to say not in front of my house, but somebody lives further away? And how? Because it's always going to be a cause and effect.
Yep.
That car's going somewhere. So why, if I buy my house 3 blocks from the school because I don't want anybody parking in front of my house from the school. Oh, wait a second, you just blocked off 2 blocks? No, so mine's the first block? It can't happen. It just can't happen because there's no fairness. If we can come up with a way that everybody spread the pain out evenly, but I don't know that in this case you can. I just don't see how that would happen. So I think it's for all of our headaches to go away, a policy where if you got like a blind person, you got a handicap, you got safety issues, we're all in. Outside of that, sorry, that's kind of the way it is for everybody in the city. You are not special, you are not better off, everything's the same, and there's no argument. I mean, they can argue, but there's no valid argument because you are no different than everybody else, and I think that's kind of where we have to go with this, because otherwise we're going to be fighting that battle, and you guys know, we all know that they're going to complain, and I would be the first to complain if people start parking in front of my house when they can park closer to the golf course or the high school or the whole thing. So I don't see how you get around that. Just no way.
Yeah, I agree, and the ordinance allows us to make those decisions you talked about, so I don't think we need to make a policy for that, so we could just not come forward to this committee with another policy for those non-safety issues, and that would be fantastic for us. And we would analyze these things as they come in, as we do now, for safety issues, and then whatever we put in the customer service document that goes back out to the residents would be what is implemented.
The policy, so we'd have something to tell the people. It would be better to have something to say, because in this particular situation, for me, it's a whole neighborhood, and it's because it's been there, we took it away, and we put a little bit back, and so it'd be really good to have a straight policy that we could just say, this is the city's policy. Then what do we do with that is up? What do we do with what's up already? There are places where we have these signs up. Do we review
Well,
those?
I could tell you a horror story about that. About 5 years ago, those people on Downer, 2 signs were missing. Out of like 6 blocks, 2 signs were missing. Those people, those 3 or 4 houses had a conniption about that. And like, we need our signs back. It was not a safety issue at all, but because those signs were down, they went back up. It was outrageous that when they came in with their pitchforks, I'm like, what are you talking about? But it's a big deal to them. So pulling those signs away that are already there, that's a tough one. But again, how did those signs get there? You can't have a rogue alderman. And we had a rogue alderman that took care of his block and his house and made those cars move. And you can't have an alderman making those independent decisions when the rest of the city's like, no, that's not the right thing to do. So that policy needs to be there, and everybody needs to adhere to it. Pulling those signs down, though, you'd almost have to grandfather some of that. But that would be the thing we really need to look at. What do we do with the signs that are there? Because I can understand both sides of that story, but those people get used to it. I think that's our real big problem going forward. I think this policy we're talking about with safety, if that's the way we go, that's easy. But what do you do with the ones that are already there? And then that's, I think, is going to be tough on all of
So
us.
maybe we can come forward with a policy next time that grandfathers existing locations, but creates some rules and guidelines for altering existing parking. Because as Alderwoman Smith stated, these enrollments of these schools or shopping malls that generate on-street parking, they ebb and flow. And so maybe some of these do need to be looked at, but let's have a policy to do that.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate you thinking about a distance, a guide. So much of this is dictated by an individual case, and I think about all of our schools in the neighborhood. When I drive here, I drive by Waldo and all that, and I see I try and put my blinders on. I drive by Waldo because it's chaos over there. It's not my different ward, so I'm like, okay, that alderman can take care of that. But truly, not far from where I live, I have a pickup line that winds over a quarter-mile long. And it is impossible, if you park on the other side of the street, to get a bus spot. It's just impossible. It won't happen. So we have refrained, even just by, I guess, bad luck. COVID happened. The signs were supposed to come up, and then nothing happened. So we kind of didn't push it again. You know, each individual case is so different. So it's really hard to put a hard fast, okay, so many feet from whatever, or, yeah, I just think the straight safety that you put in place, and including in safety, and a lot of us on the outer edges have all those cul-de-sacs, and I know that's part of the safety. If you can't get around that cul-de-sac, it's not wide enough, and you're parked on that cul-de-sac, you know, that's going to be a safety issue. We had that, unfortunately, one time. The emergency crews couldn't get in. Just couldn't, because the way people were parked. And it had an impact on that situation, unfortunately. So yeah, just straight safety. I don't think we need to put any type of parameters. You have your measurements and your guides. Definitely when you're making those or looking at those, if you copy the alderman, or if there's a, well, so I have a situation where the principal came to me and said, this is what I would like to see. Like, okay, it's your school, that's understandable, you're gonna want a lot. But the city's not gonna do all that. But we could take a look at some individual things and take a look at it. So, you know, of course, to have more people involved in the conversation is always the best. And of course, we trust you and what you're doing, and it just, we can't legislate each and every school, each and every block. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, it would be crazy to try to do that. I think, yeah, a safety. Every reason you stated to me sounds like a safety reason, and that would be something and something you can adjust on the fly. Like you said, if Waubonsie 20% over enrollment, you know, we got to do something about that. You know, I'm just using it as an example, or something like that. So, but I just, you know, trying to, a city this large and this old, to try to say somebody that lives on, you know, High Street has to do the same thing that somebody that lives on, you know, another street, a newer part of town or something. It just would not. That would be I think a book thicker than a phone book, trying to regulate all that kind of stuff. So I think all or nothing, in my opinion. So.
So would the committee like for us to come forward with a policy for just altering existing signage? When a request comes in where restrictions are in place, that we come up with a policy on how to remove or enhance those locations? Or do we just look at those grandfathered locations if a request comes in, and from a safety standpoint, we feel that we should remove them or implement more of them, we would just treat it the same way? So it's really how you want to handle the grandfathered signs, I guess, at this point, because it sounds like the entire committee's on board with.
My opinion with the grandfathered signs is just, you know, if you're going to enhance it, I think it has to meet the safety criteria. Mm-hmm. But to remove that, to me, would be, well, that's why I bought this house, because they had, you know, no parking on this street, or that various reasons. So I think for every change of adding them, you would have the same effect if you remove them. So I just think it's, they're there, and I would have to be hard pressed to remove them just to remove them, in my opinion. So that's just grandfathered in, and at some point maybe they may disappear. But any new things I think would have to meet that safety criteria, in my opinion. So, now if anybody else on the council, or,
I have a question. What is a current policy? How is it written? Or is it not? There is not one. There's not. So we need to come up with a current ordinance policy for on street parking, this exception, no parking type thing.
Well, we follow MUTCD guidelines for the safety aspect of, you know, we look at sight distance, those kind of things. So, and the ordinance allows the city engineer and traffic engineer to make those changes at will. So that policy doesn't need to be implemented. It's just the personal preference requests that come forward. And that's why we were coming here today. But I like the policy of just say no.
Now, that current policy, is that you feel covers all potential safety issues, or do you think that needs to be enhanced?
We
And
can always act,
Yeah.
and that's what I like about the policy and the way it was written is, well, not policy, the ordinance,
Yeah.
that we have that ability as enforcement officials to make those changes, and we don't have to wait to come to council if we find something important enough that has to be acted upon.
so without
Just go on record, because I do have an entire community that does have has probably been the crux of what brought this forward. Because I didn't want to sound as if I didn't support their wishes to have these signs put back in. But I really do believe that way more people in that community don't want those signs, and a small group would like those signs. But the reality is, it's their city streets, and the reasons that they received those signs to start with is gone. That reason was the overpopulation of Wabansie Valley High School, and it was a huge problem back then. That problem no longer exists. And when you put a sign up like that, you create another problem, because you create a problem with now, every single day, you've got a big majority of your neighborhood in violation of the no parking sign. So now you're creating a problem for APD. So I just feel that we have to be fair across the whole city, and I like the safety policy, and I'm on board with that part of it.
I agree, and so rather than come back with any policy, what we'll do is any alteration of signage must be done on a basis of a safety review, just as we install new restrictions. So that works for us.
I guess one question probably.
True, for the record, just
for the
state your name.
signs that are existing. This is Rupa Anjanappa from Public
thank
Works
you.
Engineering. For the existing signs, when the requests come in from a resident stating that, hey, we want these changed for the entire block, you know, that's when we'll have to think about whether we go with the 2/3 or the 80%. You know, if we can define that, I think that'll be helpful for us as we move forward when assessing those requests.
We don't
yeah.
use that.
I would state again that if they're there, they're there. So
What's there is
yeah.
there.
Chair is there.
Yeah.
What's there is there.
Okay.
And anything going forward, we use the safety policy, which you'll put something in writing so that we can refer to, or something that we can so when we do speak to residents, and you more than any of us, we have a policy that we can send them. This is our city policy. This is not a safety issue. I think the 2/3 or whatever that is, that shouldn't even be part of the policy, because any street can get 2/3 people on board.
yeah, unless they put up, they were put up the night you were moving in or something like that.
Push all the parking in Naperville, because that's what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
You can't park in Aurora because 2/3 don't want parking, they're done. So go somewhere else. Take a shuttle bus to your house. Right. Yeah, can't happen.
So, yeah.
Good talk.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, last item on the agenda, 24-0285, a resolution authorizing the appointment of L. Don Durazio to the Civilian Review Board.
So moved.
Good afternoon, Alex Voigt with the Mayor's Office. Before you is a new candidate for the Civilian Review Board. Staff met and interviewed the candidate, and she indicated she was interested the first time around, but due to personal constraints did not apply, but has taken the opportunity now. She's lived in Aurora for 20 plus years, is an active volunteer in the community, and we're very excited to present her nomination.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Well,
I do.
Alderman
I'm just
Frankel?
reading the text.
Yeah.
The nominations brought forth today represents 2 new candidates and 2 veteran candidates.
Oh, that must be a typo. So
Okay,
we
that's
will
kinda
take
what
care
I
of that.
thought.
Yeah, there's only one today.
Because I was looking, who am I missing here? All right, that's all. I just want to throw that
My
out there.
apologies.
Okay.
We'll take care of that.
Any other questions or comments?
Second.
I had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Thank you.
opposed? Item passes 5-0. No need for a closed session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Vice Chairman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We still heard.